welcome to Net Zero Speak. Why is Texas getting both metro drought and flash flood cloudbursts, sometimes in the same year? Warmer air holds about 7% more moisture per 1 degree centigrade, loading storms with extra water, while hotter, longer dry spells stress rivers and soils. Today, we welcome Dr. John Nielsen-Gammon, the State Climatologist, to translate the science into practical steps for safer homes, cities, and coasts. Dr. John, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
My first question to you is, what's the plain English reason big downpours are increasing, and one rule of thumb cities can use to plan?
The main reason, as you mentioned, is greater capacity for water vapor in the atmosphere. You have more water and the same storm system, you'll get more rain at a more intense rate. That's not the only effect that climate change has on intense rainfall. You also have the possibility that storm patterns change. Also, the structure of individual storms can change as well. There's evidence, for example, with hurricanes and typhoons that the more intense rain is getting more concentrated near the center of the storm. So all of those things can affect storms themselves. It seems, based on the science, that essentially at mid-latitudes, it's mostly that direct temperature effect that matters. But in the tropics, where you've got convergence zones that lead to large contrasts in moisture, changes in those patterns can have a very big effect. It's challenging to plan for that sort of thing locally because rainfall is so erratic. In Texas, we get factor of 2 or 3 difference in the amount of rain in a given year in a given location. So trends are kind of hard to detect locally. That basic guideline of a 7% increase per degree of warming holds pretty well across the globe, and so you can essentially plan on that sort of thing if you don't have any more specific local information.
My next question to you is, why does Texas swing from bone dry to underwater, and how should communities prepare for both?
The state of Texas covers from east to west about 1,300 kilometers. To its southeast is the Gulf of Mexico, and to its southwest is high mountains. And that leads to a big contrast in the amount of rain that occurs normally in the state. From about 200 millimeters in West Texas all the way up to 1,500 millimeters or more in East Texas. It appears that if you want to have large vulnerability to rainfall variations, and we don't want that. We're one of those places on the globe that is especially vulnerable to switches in weather. The challenge for it is planning for years in which you've got low amounts of water, because if you can get through those, then you're resilient. In the long run, if you can manage it, drought resistance, planning for those dry years means that you can survive them better.
My next question to you is, what's driving rapid storm intensification, and what should homeowners and towns do differently now?
For rapid intensification of hurricanes, cyclones, or typhoons, essentially what's going on is the climate is changing the upper limit of intensity of storms, mainly through factors like storms being able to get taller, wind shear, and so when the situation is right, they can intensify fairly rapidly. And the danger, particularly, is when they intensify rapidly close to the coastline, because there's very little warning. People trust the current situation more than they trust forecasts. Most intense storms, category 4, category 5, do go through at least one period of rapid intensification. Just because a storm is weak doesn't mean it can't intensify. Now, the main risk from that and from the intense storms as a result is storm surge and strong winds. The other risk in many areas from hurricanes and typhoons is heavy rainfall, especially where you've got mountains near the coast. And it's important to remember that the intensity of the storm doesn't matter much for how much rainfall you get. What matters more is how rapidly the storm is moving. If it's moving slowly, you can get massive amounts of rainfall, and that causes flooding directly. It can cause mudslides, and so sometimes you don't even need to pay attention to how strong the storm is. It's a risk no matter what.
Now, my next question to you is by 2036, 100-degree Fahrenheit days could quadruple in Texas. What does that mean for health, schools, and power bills?
Yeah, we're looking at the potential for quadrupling between, say, the 1970s and 2036. We've already seen essentially more than a doubling of those numbers, so we're well on track for an overall quadrupling. Typical temperatures in Texas in the summertime around 95 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 35 Celsius. Just a few degrees of warming puts it over that threshold, and because it stays warm during a whole summer, you can cross that threshold fairly easily. It makes being outdoors, and particularly with physical activity, more dangerous. It's not just the fact that we have the heat, it's because we also have high dew point temperatures. It's difficult for the body to dissipate heat energy. What that means is essentially pacing yourself, taking breaks, having plenty of water. That's possible to do if you're in control of your situation. It's more tricky if you're an outdoor worker. It's also dangerous. You can't afford air conditioning because it's really important for bodies to be able to get that break from the extreme heat at night.
My next question to you is, when planners update drainage and the coastal standards, which climate numbers do you give them and why?
It's tricky because you've got multiple projections. Projections that have been done by climate models are sort of designed to span the range of possibilities from, what it would take to stay below 1.5 degrees Celsius globally to what would happen under a very extreme case of no further action taken on climate whatsoever. We have moved in the climate science community away from putting things in the context of, in this scenario, this is how much change will happen at this time, to talking about things in terms of what we call global warming levels. The amount of increase in temperature, like 1 degree increase we've already seen. What would happen at 1.5 degrees, 2 degrees, 3 degrees, or 4 degrees? That's the main factor in the changes in weather. It doesn't matter so much what the details of the scenario is or how long it takes to get to particular temperature. Those temperature levels themselves are sort of driving the impacts. That's obviously true for temperature itself, heat waves. It's true for many aspects of intense rainfalls we talked about. That's tied closely to temperature. What I like to do for talking to planners or the general public is talk about how much change you get per degree of warming, and then leave it up to the individual or the agency or the company to decide how they want to plan for that. It sort of depends upon what your particular level of risk is and what you're trying to guard against. And so by providing information in terms of global warming levels, we're able to give that power to determine what course to take in the hands of the people who are making those decisions and providing the basic scientific information that allows them to know what those consequences are.
Where do you see Texans, farmers, engineers, city leaders getting ahead of extreme weather?
Well, Texas is, at least statewide, offices are Republican dominated. The primary philosophy for Republicans in the context of climate change is mainly ensuring prosperity for Texans, making sure that we're resilient to extreme weather events, which is fine for me as state climatologist in Texas. I'm mainly focusing on what people can do locally, adaptation, dealing with weather conditions. In terms of mitigation, which is controlling carbon dioxide, that's not a high priority for the leadership in Texas until the economics switch enough so that renewables are plentiful and reliable and cheap enough. I think Texas is still going to be dominated by an oil-based economy because the roots of its wealth go back 100 years in that regard. There is a bit of a conflict between some of the major cities in Texas and the state. Cities are more focused on the very long-range planning. The city of Austin, for example, is finished developing a second version of its 100-year water plan. For small towns, they don't have the resources to do their own particular planning. The ability to deal with climate change is somewhat limited there because of the combination of the politics of the situation as well as the resources available.
Dr. John, thank you for making Texas weather extremes understandable and actionable. This is Net Zero Speaks. Thanks for watching.